Hey guys, welcome back. We're working on the back now of homework 4, kites. So let's do it. Let's see our kite here. We know they're symmetrical, so, and we know this is equal to that. That angle is equal to that. So let's set those equal to each other. And that looks like a division sign, but it's really a plus sign. So let's do that. So we know that it's symmetrical, so whatever that angle is that angle. That's exactly like how we started. These angles, angle 1 and angle 2, were equal to each other. All right, so I'm going to set 4x plus 13 equal to 5x minus 15. And I get x is equal to 28. Now I have to come up with my y. So, kind of thinking about this like my other one, if this is y, I think this is also y. So if I can look at this kite here, I've figured out that this has to be 2y, and this one also has both of these. This would be 2 times y minus 9. And if I added them all up, they'd add up to 360. So let's figure out what y is. We know x is 28, so we can plug this in and solve. So let's plug in 4 times 28 plus 13. I get 125. So this is 125, and that's 125. Just double checking my math here. Yeah. Okay, so this is one y and another y. This would be y minus 9 and another y minus 9. And all 4 of these have to add up to 180 because it's a quadrilateral. So we have 2 times y minus 9 plus 2y plus 125 plus 125 all adds up to 180. Or 360, right? 4-sided shape adds up to 360. So we distribute. We can combine those two, 250. So 2y and 2y is 4y. Negative 18 plus 250 would be 232. Y is 32. Okay. X is 28, y is 32. Let's look at 10. We see our kite, and our kite means these two smaller lengths are equal, adjacent sides of equal length, and these two are equal. So let's set these equal and solve. So we have 4x plus 1 is equal to 17. X is 4. It looks like we could have also set these two equal, so 6x minus 3 is 21. And x is still 4. Still the same. Now, using Pythagorean theorem, solve the lengths of this side. So Pythagorean theorem comes up in these problems a lot because kites, the diagonals of kites, meet at 90 degrees, and Pythagorean theorem applies if you have 90 degrees or right triangles, right? Okay. Round to the nearest tenth. So if we have to round, we're going to round to the nearest tenth. So let's do that. It says here, I'm going to make this kite a little bit bigger, right? That makes sense. That's 2, that's 2, that's 4, that's 6. And those are all right angles. So solve for the lengths of the kite. So I can solve for this length. Just use Pythagorean theorem. And again, just focusing on this right triangle, I can say the length of this side would be a squared plus b squared would equal c squared, but I'm not interested in c squared. I'm interested in what c is. So if a was 2, 2 squared, b is 4, 4 squared. So we have 4 plus 4 times 4 is 16. And that's equal to c squared. So c squared here is equal to 20. Well, that's really long. That's not actually what I'm wanting. I'm trying to find c. So I need to take the square root of both sides, and I get c is equal to the square root of 20. But I've been asked to round that to the nearest tenth, so I'm going to do the square root of 20, and I get 4.5. So that sounds about right. Now, we know these are symmetrical, so this one would also be 4.5. So let's start filling this in. Ki would be the square root of 20 rounded to 4.5. Ke would also be the square root of 20 rounded to 4.5. Now let's do the longer side. So we also have a right triangle here. The short side is 2, the longer side 6, and we need the same formula to find the hypotenuse. So 2 squared plus 6 squared should equal c squared. 4 and 36 equals c squared. So 40 equals c squared. And I got to take the square root of both sides. So c would be equal to the square root of 40. And that would be the same for both this side and this side, because this is also a right triangle that's a 2, 6, and we're looking for the hypotenuse. So square root of 40 is 6.3, so I get IT is the square root of 40 rounded to 6.3. TE or ET would also be the square root of 40 rounded to 6.3. Good job, guys. Now let's try another one. We look here at this triangle. We have a 4, 4 triangle, and we need to find the decimal that gives us the length of the hypotenuse. We also recognize the same answer we get would give us the length of that hypotenuse. So let's do it. 4 squared plus 4 squared equals the length of the hypotenuse squared. So 16 plus 16 is 32, and that'll give us c squared. So I'm going to take the square root of both sides. I get c is equal to the square root of 32, and that's for QP, square root of 32, and also for PS, square root of 32. But we've been asked to round to the nearest tenth, so using our calculator, I got 5.7. All right, now let's find the longer one. So the longer one would be a different right triangle. I have side length 4, right angle, side length 8, and I'm looking for the hypotenuse. Now the same type of triangle would be down here as well, 4, 8, and then looking for the hypotenuse. So let's do that. 4 squared plus 8 squared would equal c squared. 16 plus 64 is c squared. 6, 80. Okay, so c squared is 80. Let's take the square root of both sides because I'm interested in c. So c equals the square root of 80. Using our calculator, let's see what that decimal would be. I get 8.9. So QR and SR would be the square root of 80 or 8.9. Okay, last one. We have, I'm just going to blow this up here. I have a kite. This is 3, 5, and a right angle. So I'm going to focus in on this right angle. 3 squared, 5 squared, that should get c squared. So when I add those together, I get c squared is equal to 34. So if I take the square root of both sides, I get the square root of 34 is EH and EF. So let's turn that into a decimal so we can approximate. I get 5.8. Okay, so EH is the square root of 34. Rounded, we are approximating around 5.8. And EF is also the square root of 34. 25.8. Now let's do the bottom hypotenuse. So this triangle is 3 and 9. So focusing on this right triangle, we get 3 squared plus 9 squared would be our hypotenuse, c squared. So 9 plus 81. So that'd be 90. So c squared is equal to 90. So take the square root of both sides. C is equal to the square root of 90. Let's approximate what that decimal would be. So I get 9.5. So the square root of 90, or 9.5. And again, that would be true for both sides of the kite because it is symmetrical. Thanks for joining us. Have a good one.